So hello everyone, welcome to AnalytixCloud. This is your host Gaurav, and today we will be discussing about our in our series, which is this is our second video, which will be on the real-time end-to-end Azure Data Engineering Project, which is part 2. So let me just give a recap of the earlier video that we did, where we were dealing with the theoretical aspect of this, where we were having a oil and gas industry company, which I explained like how exactly a data engineering project works. Like that oil and gas industry company wanted to do some kind of ML engineering in order to perform some kind of a cost reduction, and that's why in order to do that, we as a data engineer wanted to have all of their data from across different stakeholders of that company and wanted to bring it into one single source of truth, into one kind of a storage at one place basically, right? So that we can clean it, we can do some kind of a transformations, and then finally we can create any kind of a report, or we can take that data as an input to any ML machine learning models and can generate some kind of a analysis, right? So in order to do that, where we started like we were having engineering team, we were having procurement team, we were having shipment team, logistics team, right? So in the last video, I just give a brief brief idea about how exactly the tools that we will be using, why do we need those tools, and what kind of business problem that any company comes up with, right? So if you have not watched our earlier video, please have a look to that video so that you'll have a better understanding in this video so that you can get it more, right? So in this video, basically what I want to do is first of all what I do is, let's say, all of the data that we are dealing with from the oil and gas industry company, right? Now we as a data engineer, as I told, first of all we have to bring all of this data into single source of truth. So in order to get that data, in our current project that we will be showing it to you, we have kept all of this data into some kind into a one SQL server, which is on-premise SQL server basically. Okay, so in this on-premise SQL server, I will be explaining you as we will be starting a video. Okay, so from there we will be let's say taking the entire data from different tables and we'll try to load it first into our Azure Data Lake storage. Okay, and in while saving it into Azure Data Lake storage, we will be creating some kind of a control tables. We'll be creating some kind of logs. We will be maintaining a log history, right? But this will be a first like kind of a very first part where we'll be loading the data from on-premise into some kind of a bronze layer. Okay, so but before this, what do we need? Before this, we would need resources in the Azure cloud in order to perform this task, right? So this video is all about a creation of those resources, like provisioning those resources that we need basically in order to perform this activity. So I'll just create each resources one at a time, and I will explain you why do we need this resources specifically, so that you should understand what kind of resources we use for what kind of functionality, right? So let's just start our video. I hope you will like our video. So this is portal.azure.com, which you could see, which will be the very first page that you will be seeing in Azure Portal. Okay, where you will have all of these Azure services. You can create resources from here. Okay, you have the recent resources that you have worked on, and these are few shortcuts which will take you to subscription, resource group, resources, dashboards. Okay, so let's just start with our second part of our video, where we will be extracting the data from on-premise SQL Server, and we will be loading the data into Azure Data Lake Gen 2 storage, okay, through Azure Data Factory. Correct. So let me just go to the white dashboard first. Okay. So as let's just start the flow, how exactly we will be working on, right? So let's say we will be having one on-premise SQL Server. Okay, so this on-premise SQL Server will be having our basically supply data. Okay, so the supply data of the supply chain that we talked about will be present in this on-premise SQL Server.
So basically, we are saying here on-premise SQL Server. What exactly does it mean? So any company, like let's say XYZ, okay. So that if that company is provisioning the SQL Server in its own data center, right? So where they will be having hardware racks where they will be keeping the servers. They will be maintaining a server room. They will have to maintain their own people in order to maintain their server room. So that's what is on-premise SQL Server. So all of the maintenance setup and like maintenance cost will be bared by the company itself. Okay, but if we are talking about a cloud SQL Server, that means we are taking it as a service from either Microsoft Cloud or from Google Cloud or from AWS, where we do not have to worry about any of the maintenance of those databases or servers. We just have to pay for what we are using. Okay, once we just have to go to the Azure portal which we saw, and there we have to create a resource, and then we just have to create a SQL Server, and that's it. Okay, so in our case, let's say we are taking the data, supply data, which is currently stored in on-premise SQL Server, because this is the most common scenario that we are facing in each of the projects, basically, where the companies are migrating from the on-premises data or on-premises SQL servers to Azure Cloud. Okay, so that's what we are taking in our example as well. Okay, so once we have this supply data in on-premise SQL Server, what next? Okay, so basically we want to bring this on-premise SQL data from this on-premise SQL Server to Azure Data Lake storage. Okay, so basically we want to store this data into Azure Data Lake storage, which will be the raw data. So like as it is, we will be copying the data from on-premise SQL Server and we'll be storing it here. Okay, so in order to do this copy from on-premise SQL Server to ADLS, we would need some kind of a tool, right? So first of all, that tool will act as a resource that we need to create in Azure Portal. So what resource do we need to create in order to do this data extraction? So it could be multiple. So but one of the best possible way could be Azure Data Factory. Okay, so we will be using Azure Data Factory in order to extract the data from this on-premise SQL Server and load the data into ADLS, which will be the first part. Okay, so in order to do this, first of all, let us understand how exactly Azure Cloud works. Okay, so in Azure Cloud, first of all, hierarchy will be something like this, where you will be having one account. Okay, let's say you will create one account in Azure Portal. Okay, so once you create an account in Azure Portal, you can create multiple subscription out of those accounts. So let's say subscription 1, subscription 2, subscription 3. Okay, so as you can see here, basically it is one-to-many relationship where one account can have multiple subscriptions. Now in one subscription we can have multiple resource groups. Okay, resource group 1, resource group 2. Similarly, this subscription can have resource group 1, resource group 2. Similarly, this could have resource group 1, resource group 2. Okay. Now, in each of these resource groups, we will be having multiple resources. Resource 1, resource 2. Similarly, this will have resource 1, resource 2, and so on. Okay. And this resources is nothing but different resources that we will be creating, like Azure Data Factory, Azure Databricks, or could be anything like Key Vault, some SQL Server, which is Cloud SQL Server, or any resources that you worked on. So this is what is called as resources. Okay, so let's just start with the creation of the resources which we need in our case, which is Azure Data Factory. Right. So let's go to the portal.azure.com. Okay. So here, let's just create our very first resource, which is Azure Data Factory. So let me just type Data Factory. So you can create it from here. Okay, let's select. If you could see, the subscription is selected as a free trial. Now we need to have a resource group in order to create this resource, right? Because we are creating this resource, and as we saw just now that this resource will fall under resource group. So we need a resource group in order to create these resources, correct? So let's create a resource group from here. Let's keep the name of the resource group as supply chain, as we are dealing with the oil and gas supply chain data. Okay, so now this is the name of the data factory that we need to create. So each of the company will have the standard naming convention for their own resources. Let us just keep it as like ADF, as an Azure Data Factory, and supply chain, which is a project name, and let's keep it as dev. So we are creating this resource for a dev environment. Okay, so now let's just review and create. So it is just doing some validations. Post that we can just create it from here. Okay, so our Azure Data Factory is getting created. So let's just move on. What else do we need? So if I go to the whiteboard again, okay, so here if you could see, we have now Azure Data Factory, which basically will be doing those data ETL operations basically, which is data extraction. So data extraction as in loading the data from on-premise SQL Server to the storage account, doing transformation, and then doing data load. Okay, so we have already provisioned Azure Data Factory, which will be doing this ETL operations. We have now. Let's take this one by one. So for data extraction, right, what do we need? We need a source from where we will extract the data, correct? So we already have this source on-premise SQL Server here. Now, in order to do the transformation, we can do it through either Azure Data Factory itself, or we can use, let's say, Databricks, right? So based on the business requirement, basically. So in our case, we will be covering Databricks so that we can cover more resources. Okay. So this is a Databricks is one of the example for transformation, and the other is loading. So basically where you will load the data, so you should have some kind of a target in order to load the data. In our case, ADLS gen 2 is the target, correct? So let's create this storage account where we will be loading the data. Okay. So I'll go back and I'll go to the storage accounts. Before that, I'll go to resource group. I can see the supply chain resource group is created. You can see this data factory is created. Now let's create resources here. Okay, so I'll just search for um, storage account. Okay, so here you can create the storage account. Okay, so we have selected the resource group, which is supply chain. Let's take it as ADLS, as an Azure Data Lake storage. Let's take it as supply chain. Let's take it as dev. Okay, so the field can contain only lowercase and the number, so we are not supposed to give any dash here. So let's just remove it. Okay, and let's just remove it from here also. Okay, so this is in the East US region. Okay, performance we have kept as a standard, which is the default, and then we have the redundancy. So I'm just changing it from zero redundancy to local redundant service storages, because I don't want, I physically using this for just for a testing purpose. So I'm just keeping the backup in a local so that it will incur less cost. Okay, so let's just review it and create it. Okay, so our storage account is getting created now. Okay, so even this is done. So now we have two things basically. We are good with Azure Data Factory, and we are also good with the storage account that we have created. Okay, so we are good with this. We are good with the storage account. Okay, now in order to do this transformation, now we need a Databricks, right? So let's just create a Databricks now. So again, let's go to the home. Let's go to the resource group. This is a supply chain is our resource group. Let's create Databricks. Okay. So this you could see Azure Databricks. You just have to click here, Azure Databricks. Okay. Resource group is supply chain. Just give a workspace name on which you will be working. So I'll just give it as ADB supply chain, and I'll give it as dev. Okay. And manage resource group name. Let's give it as resource group supply chain there. Okay, let's create it. Okay, it is submitting for deployment here, as you could see. Okay, so now even this is done. Okay, so we are good with source, we are good with transformation, we are good with target, we are good with the ADF. We will be creating our ADF pipelines. What else do we need? Okay, so we let us just create one key vault as well. Okay, key vault. So basically, as you could see, the name suggests vault, right? So vault is something like will be used for keeping any of your precious stuffs, right? So similar way, we have a key vault where you can store your any of your credentials basically which you don't want to share, correct? So where there you need to create secrets where you will be storing your passwords. Okay, so let's say in our case basically we are trying to connect to SQL server, right? We are trying to create a SQL server. I'm just giving one example. So this SQL server will have some database name, some server name, some username in order to connect, and password, right? So in Azure Data Factory, when we will start, we will be creating pipelines. Okay, we will be creating pipeline in ADF. So this pipeline will be requiring a linked service, basically linked service that will act as a connection string that will connect to this on-premise SQL server. So that link service will ask you for all of these details, DB name, server name, username, password. So instead of hard coding the password there at the link service so that anyone could see, what we'll do is we will point this linked service basically to Key Vault so that it will uh, point it to this secret, and it will have the name of that secret, and instead of giving the values hard coded, it will pass it uh, as the passwords. Okay, so that's what the use of this particularly key vault. Okay, so let's just create the key vault now. Okay, let's go to resource group, matching, create. So for key vault. Okay. So let's give the name KV, then supply chain, then dev. Okay. So this will be our key vault, which will be in the East US region. Days to retain deleted values, let's keep it as 7, which is the minimum value. Okay. And let's just validate and create it. Okay. So deployment is in progress. So let's go to the home. So as you could see, this is a subscription which we have free trial. Inside this we have created a resource group which is supply chain. Okay, so if you go here, resource groups, we have the supply chain. Inside supply chain, we have data factory, we have Azure Databricks, we have storage account. Now we have also created key vault. So let me just refresh this page and let's see if it comes. Yeah. So now we have key vault as well. So let me go to the whiteboard. Okay. So now, in order to perform this task, we have ADF, we have source, we have data transformation as in Databricks, we have ADLS for the storage, we have key vault. Alright, so let's just start with our since we have already provisioned the resources, let us just start with the creation of the pipelines in order to do this uh, data extraction. So basically, and later on, whatever the resources that we will be needing, we will be creating at that moment of time so that we have a better understanding why exactly that the resources is required. Okay, thank you.